Jumbo, I'm Ayuma, the story coach.
Jumbo, I'm Ayuma, the money coach.
Together, we bring you Her Money Story Africa,
a podcast where we are humanizing African women's money stories.
We believe every African woman knows something about money that she could teach or learn. Grab your drinks and snacks and let's talk money the African woman style.
Remember to subscribe to our podcast and share it with a friend.
Hey sis, Ayuma here. Today's money story is by Edith from Nairobi, who talks about retirement and money. Enjoy her story and look out for Ayuma's money tool and our reaction to this episode.
Let me tell you my story. So I worked for 33 years, and you'll be shocked, just for 2 companies, but I climbed the career ladder for each of the organizations. So I'm a dying breed, like I tell people, because these days people just stay 3 years or whatever. So I worked for 2 companies, like I said, one for 9 years, one for 24 years. So starting around mid-2018, rumors started to go about that, there's going to be a change in ownership. And, even having been in HR, you still feel impacted by it because you know that, first of all, you will lose employees and maybe you might be impacted as well. And at that time also, I was actually going to be 55 years in November of 2018. So that was the company's retirement age. But I was just having this inkling that, maybe because the government, other companies have 60 or 63 years, maybe I'll be able to, squeeze myself in through there. And what? So the employee engagement session started around end of 2018. And you can imagine the fear, the pain, anxiety, and the unknown as well, because, also you're losing family. When you work in an organization for long, you build strong friendships. So, like I said, 3 years in corporate, and, it was like a boom hit. Something hits you that, whoa, I've been such a dedicated employee. First of all, I don't have any side businesses because we're this generation where you're so dedicated to your employer, you don't want to have the side businesses because it's a conflict of interest, or what will they think and what. So you start to think, how am I going to survive? And, all those, so much was going through in my mind, and also thinking about, I also have to tell my husband and also my kids. Yeah. So I already just felt that also as well. I think it was God prompting me that, Edith, it's time for you to move on. There's a next chapter in your life that is coming. But I kept on having this resistance. No, I still want to stay on into corporate. I'm so happy about the monthly salary, medical benefits, bonus, what? But then no. So come now, I got the actual retrenchment letter on the 9th of November that said, well, you work with us until 31st December, but because of business continuity, we'll still need you from January to March of 2019. And mind you, because I reached retirement age, I'm not going to get a retrenchment package. So there I was, I'd been calculating, if I get the retrenchment package, I'll have this amount, millions of shillings, and what? Woe behold, of course, there's nothing that came, yeah? So I told my husband, and coincidentally, at a few months after that, he also got retrenched now from work. Yeah. So, but the good thing is that at least things were going to be okay. Yeah. That yes, we felt very sad that this was happening to me, but it's fine. So of course there were tough times because I wasn't ready as well, and you have that fear of the unknown and you don't know what you're going to do. So I decided to take on a coach because I just realized that, Edith, you really do need help. So I took on Joanne Muturi on that 2018. Yes, I remember that. Now, she is the one who was critical in ensuring that I got that mindset change. Yes, you've reached 55 years. Yes, you've reached retirement. It's not the end of the world. There's so much more out there that I could do. And what? So 28th February 2019, I remember the last day, that was my last day at work. I was handing over, I left, I felt relief and also fear, but also I felt sad. There was no one there like cheering me on and, hey, you did go, go, go. I walked out and I just drove home, yeah? So I just felt like, I've just been forgotten. I'm nothing and whatnot. But, I just realized I needed to pick myself up. and now start to see what are you really grateful for, Edith. And for me, I just said, I have a monthly annuity. There are other people who don't have a monthly annuity. So I get a monthly pension payment. And my last born child was actually in university at that time. So I didn't need to pay school fees or anything. And I was of sound mind. I was healthy. And that I'm actually, with my work experience, I can now actually set up my own HR consultancy. So I started this in April 2019. And, it was maybe a tough 1 or 2 years, but now it's picked up so much. And I just, I actually sometimes think I'm enjoying myself more than when I was working. Yeah. So now just going into what are the learnings when we look at it from the financial perspective. So first of all, I always stress, and now from what I've experienced, is that from the minute you start working, start saving for retirement because it comes so, so quickly. I never expected it. And it took me by shock, yeah. And another thing as well, do not use your retirement money to buy your home. I made that mistake. I don't want anybody else to experience that because your retirement money is your retirement money. You shouldn't use it to, spend millions to buy a home and what. You should plan yourself in such a way that you're able to take care of your home before that. Huh? Another aspect is that create different income streams when you are working, right? Look at there is what they call passive and active income. Spread your risk across all those. And the most important thing is now actually consulting and networking with people to understand what are the things that are taking place in the market. Because I think now there's so many opportunities for investments. Yeah. So say, oh, I need it maybe for a 5-year term or maybe education and what. So even by the time you get to retirement, everything has been set out for you. Yeah. So another thing also, which I think for me, it's employers and maybe individuals, is that start planning for your retirement 10 years before you retire. So that by the time it happens, you're fine. If you need the support, the coaches, or maybe a mentor or somebody, just go for it. Yeah. And the key thing as well is consistency in investments. Sometimes, especially as women, you get tempted that, oh, maybe I need to take my children for holiday. Oh, I need to buy my husband this and that. But then you're actually eating into money that you can be able to use in a few years' time. Yeah. So like I said, you start small and build, and you keep on building up. I mean, like now we have this Old Mutual I Invest. You can actually just put in 200 shillings or something. So start with these small amounts, and as you continue growing, you now increase the amounts accordingly. Yeah. But just to end it as well, is that for me also, why have I been able to survive? And even I still think about myself, I can still invest. Yes, I'm past retirement age, but I can still do my investments. So my faith in God is very important because God is in control. And so that's it.
This episode is brought to you by Let's Leading Through Story. Do you wear many hats as a woman leader? Do you need an experienced brand storytelling coach to help you find synergy with your multiple interests through a clear and structured brand story? Partner today with award-winning story coach, consultant, and trained journalist Ayuma Michelle. For about a decade, Ayuma has amplified and structured brand stories for over 1,000 global women leaders across 5 continents, from Wall Street women, international fashion designers, corporate managers transitioning to consulting, and stay-at-home mothers launching new businesses. She's also the story coach behind her Money Story Africa episodes. Book now your complimentary 45-minute discovery call with Ayuma on our show notes. Learn more about Ayuma and her work on Instagram at Ayuma_Michelle or her website www.letsfindyourstory.com. Edith, how do you feel after sharing your story?
I feel great. As a people person, I thrive in being able to make a difference to other people through my stories. Yeah. So I really enjoyed this session. Thank
Like
you.
you're flowing. I'm
Yeah.
just like she's
And you're
she's owned
such
it.
a natural orator. I love your voice. I love your voice, your confidence, how you're bringing it all out. Most of the time, whenever you hear people talking about, retirement, I don't know why. But it's like maybe it's a trigger. Maybe it's an emotional trigger for many people. Because
It
sometimes you
is.
expect somebody to come and share like this woe is me story, how this never happened and stuff. But for you shared with us, like you actually need to sort of scratch to actually realize, hey, you actually went through some rough stuff. But
Yeah.
I think it's the fact that you're taking it on with like this positive energy.
Yes.
And you have this energy and attitude of like, I'm victorious no matter what,
Exactly.
And that's why it sounds like such a beautiful breath of fresh air to learn about retirement. What do you think about it, Juliet?
Just like you said, I love that you've owned your story so much. And like you said, like I'm just hearing positive things, while it came early, it came when you are not prepared, but how you are able to move past it. I mean, I think that's amazing, because when I work with people who actually probably two of my clients have been in their 50s.
Yes.
Yeah, and are not ready. They're just not ready for retirement at all, and they have all this debt and all those things.
Yes.
And I often hear that fear of I'm not ready. I can't do this. What's ahead? They can't tell, And so just hearing your story from that side and what you've been able to do has just been amazing. Thank you so much for honoring us and
Julia,
sharing.
thanks, Ayuma.
Yeah.
And yes, I know I painted a sort of rosy picture, but even if I do have my bad times, whereas, I wish I could get this type of money and what, but you know what? Somehow I always get out of the situation. I will get 2 or 3 clients. I'm able to meet my targets. So your mindset and also visualizing, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to get. It just, you just, is it tunnel? I mean, you just feel it.
tunnel vision.
Sometimes it's actually scary.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually happened, and what? Yeah. So it's just not giving up.
And I'm curious, how did your family take it? Like, because you said you needed to go and inform your husband and your kids. How did they take the news? Had you guys ever had a conversation about retirement in their house, or was this like the first time? And how did they take it?
Yeah, and the fact that your husband was retrenched shortly after.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
No, we never had that discussion. And when I told my kids, they were like, whoa, so what are you going to do? What's going to happen to you, Mom? Are you okay? Because at least the eldest two were working. And, the youngest one was finishing university. So I told them, I'm going to be fine. We're going to be okay. Yes, I might go through some rough patches and what, but I know I'm going to come out of it and what. I do not want to be that statistic of people who've retired, maybe 55 or 60. You go home, you sit there, you become depressed and you die. There's so much more out there. There's so many opportunities these days. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
in
curious.
fact, there's something that I actually heard from my mom. She shared that right after she retired, they went through a certain conversation with a former guy who worked at, is it the retirement
Benefits
Authority? I think it's Dr. Odundo. And it said that most Kenyans, the stats were that many Kenyans retire with less than 1 million shillings, or either 1 million shillings or something to their name. And that money ends very soon. And so many Kenyans are actually retiring in poverty. And then the fact that in our society, it's like, especially the boomers generation, many people thought that, if I bought a house, I'm good. But then you can't eat a house. So you retire and you have a home, but then you don't have an income. So Juliet, what do you think about this? Why, especially when you look at that generational difference? Why do you think like many people thought just having a house was, you're sorted? How come they never thought of the income? And how can we as millennials, Gen Zs, and people who are coming up, what can we learn from that and prepare ourselves?
I think the main thing is actually education, because, two things actually. There's that part of not knowing what is needed at retirement, right? And then secondly, there's a huge cultural, I don't know if I can call it cultural motivation towards owning land and property. So sometimes you feel like I'm not financially successful until I own my home.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point.
And so that, like, when you're working all these years, you're like, how can I have worked all these years and not have owned a home? So, and that's why they dip into there, pension money and they lock it into a physical
Yes,
asset,
yes.
and yet at retirement, the biggest need you have is liquidity. You want to be able to actually pay for
Wow.
stuff, move around,
Yeah.
enjoy your life, and pay for transport and eat and all those things.
Yes,
And so you find a lot of boomer parents who are retired, they have their home, but their children still have to send money for food.
Yes.
Or if the
Yes.
roof falls off, they don't have money to fix it,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're still cash strapped. The biggest need at retirement is actually that money. You need the
Liquidity.
cash. So as opposed to locking it into a physical asset, you need to put it somewhere where there's continual income stream that you can actually live on. And on that same note, the idea of owning that home and not having the money, still need to be supported. I was actually in a I can't remember, it was a Twitter space, X space these days. And they were talking, there was somebody who came in and said how he's really tried to prepare for retirement, all those things, and he can't. And so he's investing heavily on his children because his children are his
Wow.
retirement
Oh
plan.
my goodness. But I've heard that though.
Yes.
When I go to my village, that is the narrative.
Yeah.
But that
Guys
needs to
have
change.
like children out of the woodworks. There's this one, like for real. I was
Yeah.
recently in the village and I just discovered I have more cousins. Do you know, for real, I sat down with my uncle and we were like, yo, man.
Your Benny.
Like, what in the trifling is happening? Like,
But I
you
think
just
that
can't-
narrative has to change
Yeah.
because that assumption of my kids will take care of me, no, that
And
has
that's a
to change.
poverty mindset.
Yeah, that's a poverty mindset because if they want to help you, it's okay, but you must prepare yourself
Yeah.
for that time.
Yeah, so that they can have their own aspirations and not constantly, also have this sort of like what is it called, guilt.
Exactly.
That when they have, how can I have? And
Exactly.
yet mom and dad don't have.
yeah.
How can
So
I
they feel like
travel
they
the
have
world and
to.
mom and dad have never left,
Yeah.
even just the
Right.
locality.
Yeah.
Then it implants this guilt, which then ends up elevating
Yeah.
a poverty mindset that your
True.
kids would rather feel like they're at the same level with you rather than prosper and become better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yo.
And now when I work with millennials or even Gen Zs for that matter, you have these people who are unable to actually plan for retirement because they have to keep sending money home. So the money that is being sent home ideally should have been what is going towards their retirement, but it's not doing it.
Oh
So
my goodness.
they get to the retirement age, they don't have the money. So what happens? My
The same
children
cycle
have to take care of
continues.
it.
Cycle,
And so
you're
we are in a
right.
cycle that somebody somewhere has to break the
it,
cycle.
yeah.
Oh
Somebody
my
somewhere has to
gosh.
break it. And it comes with just saying, either now the millennial, I'm like, yeah, I love you, but
Yeah.
when I look into the future, I'm not seeing how I'm gonna do it or how do I balance. You must make sure that at some point you are putting away money aside so that you don't carry it on to your children. Yeah. And then now with the parents themselves, just having that consciousness, because it's very few actually who feel like, no, I can't burden my children like this. There's just a sense of they are my children. I gave them education, I gave them food,
Yeah,
I
it's
gave
an
them all those
expectation,
things.
yeah.
Yes.
ROI.
Yes.
Thank you.
Investment.
That's the word,
Yeah. So
ROI.
when this guy was saying my children are my retirement plan, so you're saying I'm putting
my
heavily on the
gosh.
education and all these things so that they get good jobs, and when they get good jobs, then they'll be able to have money to share.
Oh my goodness. Going back to the phrase that my children are my retirement plan, words are so powerful. And they're literally like prayer. I can just imagine what that means to a child hearing their parents
Exactly.
say that. And also what that does to the parent having to admit that, which reminds me of African tax. From
Yeah,
your
the black tax,
perspective,
yeah.
how would you describe African tax?
Yeah, well, more people call it black tax, but it's that it becomes a tax when there's that I give you because I want to, I love you, I want to bless your life, and then some people, because of that connotation, they tend to call it a love fund or a love gift, but the tax. It implies something, a heaviness that you carry that you would rather not, because you have this money and there are things that you'd want to do with it, but you have to do this thing. Like it's like almost like obligatory. Like if I don't do it, there's some curse that is following behind. So we give out of pressure, we give out of guilt, we give out of manipulation, and all those things. And that's why I was saying that you can't. I feel like there's honor, there's blessing in giving, especially our parents, and ensuring that they are okay. But there's a necessary point at which you have to do a balance of what does financial health look like. Not just for me right now. Like, I might be able to afford to send you some 20K every single month, but what is financial health 20 years from now, 15 years from now? Because if what I'm doing now is putting myself at risk, then I need to circle back and again really look at what I'm trying to achieve. Yeah. And there's a balance. It's a tough one, by the way. It's easier said than done. Because when I'm now working with clients and I'm looking at the numbers and I'm looking at their own value system and all those things, it's really a struggle. But just having clarity of what financial health is really makes a big difference. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Edith. And just in case you're listening to us, please let us know, have you planned for your retirement? Does it scare you or does it excite you? That lets you know whether you're prepared. And are you guys having conversations about retirement either with your spouse, at the workplace, and even just maybe with your siblings or even with your kids? Please let us know in our comments and let us know what you guys think about today's topic.
Hey sis, Ayuma here. Edith's story touches on retirement, like greatly touches on retirement and touches on the need to know what it takes to retire well. And that means that there's a necessity for you to actually have what we call a retirement calculator. And a retirement calculator helps you to figure out, when I retire, how much money should I be retiring with? And that's the math that a lot of us don't do when we are trying to think about the future, because we are often very present now motivated. This is my life today. This is what I want it to look like. But would your 40, 50, 60-year-old be comfortable with the decision that you're making today? That's kind of how we need to think about retirement. Before I talk about this tool, I want you to picture yourself mentally. You are 60, you're 65, right? And just your image, your body, and your face. What does that look like at that point? A psychologist did an experiment some time back, and he said, and what they did is that they did an AI manipulation of people's images, and they gave them their 65-year-old versions of themselves to look at. And they said that those who, and then there was the group that looked at their baby photos, and the result of the experiment was that those who were able to see themselves at their age at 60, at 65, were able to do so much more towards preparing for that person because they were able to connect with that person. So even as we talk about the retirement calculator, at the back of your mind, I want you to have that image of yourself. When you're 60, when you're 65, when you're 80, when you're 85, who are you? What do you look like? And what does it look like to live the life that you're looking? The next thing I want you to do is to imagine the things that you're doing with your lifestyle. Like, what kind of, are you going on trips? Are you going out with friends? Are you visiting your children and your grandchildren? Are you still working? Are you farming? Like, what does that look like? And just imagine the things the kind of expenses you'll probably be having at that time. And then put a number on that, right? And then come back to where you are today as a millennial, as a Gen Z, wherever you are, come back today and then look at your lifestyle expenses, your transport, all the things that you need to survive in a given month in your present age. Multiply that by 12 to get an annual number. Right? With that annual number, we want to project you to your 65-year-old self. And how do we do that? We use inflation. If there's anything we know as Kenyans this year is inflation. We have seen the cost of living going up dramatically. The baseline I usually say is that where you are now, imagine that that's the lowest lifestyle you will have, and such that when you retire, you will not go below that. You can go above, but never below. So use that as your baseline. So when you're projecting yourself to your 65-year-old self, let's say you find that you spend 600,000 shillings every single year. So 50K times 12, 600,000. And then we are going at an inflation rate. Right now we are, I think, at 7% or 6.5 thereabout. But even if you use 5% inflation rate and project it to your 65-year-old self, that means that you're living the exact same life you're living today. The only thing that has changed is that the cost of living has gone up. Once you have that number at that point, say it comes to about 30 million, I'm just doing estimates, 30 million, and then now work backward and say, what do I need to start doing right now in order to have 30 million by the time I'm 65? And the interesting thing about this math is that the same way inflation happens is the same way returns on investment happens. Inflation compounds just as much as returns on investment compound. What you just need to figure out is my investment compounding at a higher rate than the inflation? Once you put that money now that you start putting away, if it's 10,000 shillings, and you just make sure that it's giving you a return that is higher than the inflation rate, then you'll be set for retirement. And this is something that you have to check in with yourself, especially on an annual basis, just to confirm I had put my money here. How much did it bring in this year? And is it as per my expectation? So do that regular check-in. If your employer has given you a pension benefit, make sure you're always getting your statement, you're looking at the balances and making sure that you're working towards that 30 million goal that is at the end of the point of retirement. I hope that's a helpful tool for you to figure out how much money do I need for retirement, and making sure that now that you know, given Edith's story that she has shared with us, what can I start doing today to prepare both financially but also psychologically for what is ahead?
Did you love today's episode? Share it with a friend and stay tuned for more stories. Subscribe now to our podcast and follow us on our socials on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Her Money Story Africa.